in engineering, there's this idea of tolerance.
Right, the margin of error.
Exactly. It's the gap you're allowed to have between the blueprint and the actual part.
Yeah.
And if that gap is too big, well, the whole thing just shakes itself apart.
Structural failure, yeah.
And that's what we're talking about today. But we're not talking about engines or bridges. We're talking about human character.
We're talking about the integrity gap, the space between what we say and what we do.
And it's that gap that can make things fall apart.
Oh, absolutely. Socially, professionally, you name it.
So we've got a really fascinating piece of source material for this. It's an audio message, a sermon, actually.
Mm-hmm.
It's titled, "Everyone is Watching." And it was delivered by a speaker named Pastor Beard, or Huzikwam, on February 12, 2026.
And we should probably be clear here, before anyone tunes out at the word sermon,
Right.
Our mission here isn't religious. We're treating this as a primary text on, social psychology, on ethics in the workplace.
Yes, exactly. So it's technically based on some biblical text and a writer named Warren Wiersbe, but the real meat of it is this gritty, fascinating case study on history, on reputation, and, well, on why no one believes a word you say until they see what you do.
It's amazing he connects this incident from the 19th century Native American diplomacy all the way to the pressures of a modern office in Taiwan.
It is a massive leap. So let's start with the history, because the source kicks off with this incredible story, one I had never heard before, but it feels like it should be required reading.
The showdown at Buffalo Creek, New York, summer of 1805.
Okay, so set the scene for us. What's it like there? What's the general vibe in 1805?
Tense. Extremely tense. I mean, you've got the U.S. expanding, the Six Nations of the Iroquois trying to hold on to their land, their entire way of life.
It's a powder keg.
It is. And right into the middle of this walks a guy named Mr. Cram.
Mr. Cram. It felt like a character from a Dickens novel or something.
He was a missionary from the Boston Missionary Society, and he wasn't there to talk about land deals. He was there to talk about souls.
He wanted to convert.
That was the goal. And his approach was, let's just say it was very confident.
That's putting it mildly. The source makes it sound like he just walked in and said, "I have the truth. You're all living in darkness, so listen up."
It was completely top down. He thought he was bringing civilization itself. He expected them to just nod along.
But he misread the room. Big time.
He really did. Because he wasn't just talking to anyone. He was talking to Red Jacket.
And to Red Jacket.
A Seneca chief. A diplomat. And maybe one of the greatest orators of his time. He doesn't just sit there and take it. He stands up. And it's not just a polite, "No, thank you."
No.
It's a complete dismantling of the missionary's entire argument.
And what I love, and what the source really zooms in on, is how he does it. He doesn't argue using Seneca beliefs. He uses Mr. Cram's own world against him.
He sets this brilliant rhetorical trap. The source calls it the unity argument.
So what is it?
He looks at Mr. Cram and he asks, and I'm kind of paraphrasing from the source here, he says, "Brother, you say there's only one true religion, one way to worship the Great Spirit.
Okay.
If that's true, why do you white people disagree so much about it?"
Wow. That's a killer question.
Just cuts right to the bone. He says, you all have the same book, you all claim to have the same God, so why can't you agree? He's seeing all the different factions fighting each other.
He's basically asking, if the product manual is so clear, why is the product such a mess?
Exactly. Why would I buy this thing when your own experts can't even agree on how it works? It just destroys the authority of the messenger.
But he doesn't even stop there. He then moves on to what I think is the most powerful part. He proposes an experiment.
The wait-and-see protocol.
Yeah. It sounds so modern, right? Or like something a behavioral psychologist would come up with.
It is. It's empirical. He says to the missionary, "Brother, we're going to wait a little while." And he points to the white settlers in the town next door. People the Native Americans dealt with every day.
The ones they traded with. And, let's be honest, probably the ones who were constantly cheating them.
That's the implication. So Red Jacket says, "We will watch them. We know them.
Okay.
If your preaching makes them more honest, if it stops them from cheating us, if we see an actual change in their behavior, then we will talk. Then we might consider your religion."
We will wait and see.
It just completely shifts the burden of proof.
Yeah.
He's saying, don't give me the sales pitch, show me it works on your existing customers.
And if it doesn't even work on your own people, then what are you even doing here?
Precisely. And this is the core idea the source builds on. Skepticism is almost never about logic. It's about morality. People don't reject an idea because the philosophy is bad. They reject it because the followers are.
It's that tolerance gap again. Red Jacket could see the gap between what the settlers claimed to believe and how they acted. It was massive.
And the source goes even deeper on this. The speaker, Pastor Beard, says this wasn't just a one-off thing. It was connected to this bigger historical trauma. He brings up the Pilgrims.
Yeah, the Mayflower. This part was tough. We have this kind of sanitized Thanksgiving card version of that story.
The source just strips that all away. It calls it the historical context of hypocrisy. It reminds us, when the Pilgrims landed, they were dying.
Right. They were freezing, starving.
They were refugees. They only made it through that first winter because the Native Americans helped them, showed them what to plant, gave them food, charity.
They were totally dependent.
But then, the betrayal.
Yeah.
The source points this out so clearly. Once the settlers got strong, once they had their own harvest and their own power, the whole dynamic flipped. It wasn't partnership, it was oppression, displacement.
And the source argues this isn't just a political tragedy, it's what it calls a theological crisis.
Yes, because if you say you worship a God of love and justice, but your actions are theft and cruelty, you create, in the source's words, a confusion about that God.
The person watching you, in this case the Native Americans, they can only conclude one of two things.
Right. Either your God is evil like you are, or your God is powerless because he can't even get his own people to behave.
It totally justifies Red Jacket's position. The historical data was already in, and it was not good.
Not at all. The gap between the marketing, we are a nation of faith, and the reality on the ground was just too wide. The whole machine just fell apart.
Okay, so that's 1805. It's a heavy, powerful history lesson. But then the source pivots hard. We leave Buffalo Creek and we land in Taiwan in February 2026.
The modern application. The source was delivered right before the Lunar New Year holiday.
Right. And for anyone listening who isn't familiar with that, can you just unpack the vibe of that time? Why is this the moment the speaker chooses to talk about integrity?
It's such a unique time. It's like, imagine the week before Christmas, but it's also the end of the fiscal year for everyone's bonuses. So people are rushing to finish work, but psychologically, they're already on vacation.
Total senioritis for the entire country.
Absolutely. But the source points to another layer here, the comparison game, because it's bonus season.
The year-end bonus. A huge deal.
Massive! And the source says this is when social comparison goes into overdrive. Everyone is looking at everyone else. Who got the bigger bonus? Who got a promotion? Who's flying to Japan for the break? And who's flying to Europe?
It's that curated Instagram version of our professional lives. Look at my new bag, look at my flight, all the external stuff.
But this is where the source completely flips the script, and it connects right back to Red Jacket.
How so?
The speaker argues that while you're busy looking at your coworker's bonus, they are looking back at you. But they're not checking your salary.
So what are they looking for?
They're running the Red Jacket test. They're watching your character. They're looking for consistency.
That's a little unnerving. We think people judge us by our wins or successes.
Yeah.
But the source is saying they're really judging us by our witness, our behavior.
Especially at work. I mean, think about it. Do you really care deep down if a coworker makes more money? Maybe a little. But do you care if they lie in a meeting and make you look bad?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That directly affects me.
That's the whole point. People are watching to see if you're trustworthy, if you're safe to work with. The source says, while we're all distracted by the shiny objects, everyone around us is quietly conducting a moral audit on us.
And the source gets specific about the social landscape where this audit happens.
Yeah.
In Taiwan, it's not a monolith.
No, not at all. You have this complex mix of people, Taiwanese, Hakka, indigenous peoples, mainlanders, and now you have large groups of foreign spouses, migrant workers.
And with that diversity comes the danger of hierarchy.
A huge danger. The source asks the question directly. Do we treat these groups differently? Is there an invisible caste system in how we interact? I got a bigger bonus, so I'm better than the migrant worker cleaning the bathroom. That kind of thinking.
And this is where the source brings in a big theological concept to solve a very practical social problem. It talks about Imago Dei.
The image of God. It's this core idea that every single person has inherent worth and dignity. Doesn't matter what your job is, what your ethnicity is, how much you make.
So how does the source say that should work in practice?
It uses the speaker's own community, the Beipu Church, as an example. The rule there is simple. The only person with a special role is the preacher, and that's just because someone has to do the talking. Other than that, everyone is equal. There's no VIP section.
Okay, but let me be the red jacket for a second here. That's a nice thing to say. It sounds great in a sermon. We're all equal. But does it actually work?
That's the challenge, right? Show me the proof. And the source actually offers an anecdote as proof. The 2-week test.
Tell me about that.
A teacher came to visit this community. He was only there for 2 weeks, which is nothing. You barely learn anyone's name in 2 weeks.
You're just a tourist at that point.
Right. But at the end, his feedback was that it felt like he'd come home. He actually used the phrase, like family.
In just 2 weeks. Why? What did he see?
And that's the key. It wasn't what he heard in the sermon. It wasn't the doctrine. It was the atmosphere. It was the environment. The source argues he was convinced by the nonverbal witness, not the verbal one. He watched the neighbors, and he saw genuine warmth and acceptance.
So the behavior matched the marketing. The claim was, we're a welcoming family. And the operations, how they actually treated a total stranger, proved it.
Exactly. The tolerance gap was 0. And that's what wins people over, that feeling of safety. Not a clever argument.
Okay, so we have the historical warning, the social challenge. Now, for the part that made me squirm a little, the really practical advice for the workplace right before a holiday.
This is where the rubber meets the road. And the source uses this really intense metaphor. It says believers in the workplace can be like sheep entering a pack of wolves.
Which, I'll be honest, at first that sounds a little defensive. Like, oh, poor me, the world is out to get me.
It can sound like that, but the source reframes it. It's not about being a victim, it's about being strategic. The advice is to be wise as serpents, but innocent as doves. It means you have to understand the game without playing dirty.
Don't be naive.
Exactly. But the specific instruction for that pre-holiday slump is where it gets really pointed. The source just says, do not slack off.
Ouch. I mean, it's the last 2 days. Everyone else is mentally checked out. The boss is probably gone. Does it really matter?
According to the source, it matters more right then. Because when the norm is to coast, your decision not to coast becomes this high contrast signal. It stands out.
It's about differentiation.
Totally. If you're the person who actually finishes that report properly, if you don't leave a mess for someone else to deal with after the break, that becomes your witness.
Oh, the spreadsheet is the sermon.
In that context, yes. The source is so clear on this. Don't be opportunistic. Don't be lazy. Because if you claim to have some higher moral code, but you're the first one to cut corners when no one's watching, you have failed the red jacket test.
Your belief system just made you a worse employee. Why would anyone want that?
Precisely. If the product makes the user lazy or entitled, nobody's buying it.
It's incredible. We started with this showdown in 1805, and we've ended up with the realization that our coworkers are basically red jacket. They're running the same test on us every single day.
It's the universal law of credibility, isn't it? You can have the most beautiful message in the world, but if the container is leaky, if your character has holes in it, the message is lost.
That confusion the source talked about.
Exactly. If you say your values are about integrity, but you're lazy, you create confusion. If you say you value community, but you gossip, you create confusion. The goal is coherence.
Coherence is the perfect word.
Red Jacket saw incoherence. And what the source is challenging is for people of faith, or really anyone with a stated set of values, to close that gap, to make sure the actions match the mission statement.
And this isn't just about faith, right? This applies to anything. If you say you're an environmentalist, but you never recycle because it's a hassle, it's the same gap.
100%. The observer doesn't care what you call yourself. They only care about the data points your actions provide.
So to wrap this up, I want to leave everyone with a final thought. We've talked about huge historical moments, big social ideas. Let's make it really small. Think about the people in your immediate orbit, not your boss. I mean, the barista who makes your coffee, the delivery guy, that annoying coworker, your own family.
The people who see you when you're not on.
Exactly. If they, and only they, were asked to decide whether or not to adopt your entire worldview, your values, based only on how you treat them when you're tired or stressed, or when you think no one's keeping score, would they buy in?
That is the ultimate test, isn't it?
It really is. Red Jacket is still watching. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
See you next time.